Okay, I think I am live. So I'm going to go ahead and start because I wanted to make a video and have a little chit chat and talk about some of the things that I have seen as a corporate recruiter, just some things I've seen job seekers do during either in-person interviews or phone interviews that I've just been thinking about, and actually made a list because there was a couple things that were just coming to my mind today as I was talking to a young lady today about just her resume. And for some part of the conversation, we started talking about some things that she can actually discuss during any job interviews. So we're kind of walking through the resume. I was giving her some different tips that she could use and some things that I advise she change. And that's kind of where we went into just some tips of where you need to bring up points of your resume, basically bragging about yourself and relating things to the job. So we were talking about that for a little bit. So I'm gonna post in here real quick. Gonna post in the chat at least. So anyway, so there were some things that came up of that conversation. So I was just kind of thinking, just over the past couple of months, I have definitely heard things that job seekers have said, either due to nervousness or just because maybe they haven't interviewed in a really long time, which is fair. I totally get that. But they're just things that you should not say during any job interview, whether it's over the phone or in person. There's also some things that I've seen people wear that are just like, some are huge, like no-nos, like you don't do that. While other things, I don't know, maybe people wouldn't actually think of them because it's like small. Don't do that. So anyway, those are some things I was thinking about. Oh, hi, Deepak Sarma. Welcome to the chat. I'm doing well. Happy Monday. I was just trying to make sure I was live, and I think I am. So I am just talking about some things that job seekers have done or said in the past that I know that you should not do. So I'm going to share them in this video. How are you today, Deepak, and where are you located? Tell me where you are. Hi, Edward. Welcome. So in this live, I'm going to be talking about some things that job seekers have said or done that are just no-nos. So we're going to chit chat about that. And thank you, Deepak. That's so nice of you to say. Where are you located, Deepak? And Edward, where are you located as well? I'm so bad with remembering where everyone is at. I am in Dallas, Texas right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the video. So the first thing that I remember someone doing, and this was maybe a few months ago, but I had just a phone interview with a girl, and it was for some type of accountant job. And she was having, I think, allergies that day. But on the phone with me, she was going, oh, and yawning. Literally every sentence was her yawning. So I just asked her, like, hey, is this still a good time to talk? And she was like, yeah, it's a good time to talk. So sorry, I'm yawning. I took some allergy medicine earlier, right before the call. And I'm just like, Why? So that would be a huge no-no. If you do not absolutely have to take medicine, I would say don't do it. Or in her case, I just wish she had have postponed her interview. Like if it was a day where her allergies are messing up and she's worried about sneezing the entire time, um, hey, just say, can we talk tomorrow or, another day? That's totally fine. But I guess that was probably my first time outside of an incident where someone I'm pretty sure was high, like they were smoking weed right before the call. I think that was the only time I had someone that had taken some medicine and was just off during their phone interview. So that was interesting. Definitely something I advise not doing, of course. Edward, you're in Honolulu. Oh, nice. Oh my gosh. I guess we can travel to Honolulu. It's in the United States. That is cool. I am a little jealous of you. Deepak hasn't said where you're located, but thank you. I appreciate the really nice words. Very nice. Appreciate it. Okay, so the second thing that I have seen someone do is I remember calling up another young lady, and I don't remember what job this was for, but I remember that she had a ton of background noise and still wanted to hold her phone interview. And it was like she was in a call center. She worked in a call center and she was definitely taking the call just in her workplace. And I'm just like, this is a huge no-no. One, because of the fact that you will probably be distracted if you're taking a call, in a typical workplace like a call center where you're going to have background noise. But then also, you may be distracted because you're at work. Even if you have an office or something, it may just be a little awkward if someone's trying to talk to you or something and you can't because you're doing your job interview. So that was another thing. It's also really distracting for the interviewer because obviously, we've got our set of questions that we're going to ask you. And, obviously we don't want those distractions either. The next thing was just the whole internet connection thing. So definitely when you have a phone interview or virtual interviews, since that's all we're doing now in most cases, you definitely want to make sure that you are in a place where you have pretty good internet connection. So test out your stuff, test out your computer if it's like a virtual interview via Zoom or something similar. And if you're on a phone, you want to make sure you're in a place where you have pretty good connectivity. Well, in this situation, I had a guy, I want to say it was maybe a factory job or something. So I get it. Sometimes these are in remote locations. But me and this guy, we were like going back and forth and kept getting cut off like at least 5 times. It was at least 5. And this guy's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I always have bad connection. I'm just like, why did you take this call in a place where you have bad connection? Now, I get it. Sometimes it's really tough to squeeze in a phone interview, but you definitely want to make sure you're in a place with a good connection because you want to make the most out of that conversation. So for, losing connectivity every minute, you're not going to really be able to impress that interviewer. So just a tip. The next one actually comes to dress. So dress is something that I talk about a lot on my channel. I think I have at least 2 or 3 videos at least on just, your look and your attire. And obviously the better you look and the better your presentation is, the better your chances, just being honest. Now, this case, a guy came into the office and was wearing jeans and tennis shoes for a job interview for a corporate role. So he would be in a corporate environment. Now, this guy, I think, came from some type of warehousing job. So I think he just really did not know that he couldn't just, come to his interview jeans and tennis shoes. He was presentable otherwise, shaved, hair combed, all of that. Nice top. I think it was like just a button down top. But it was something that immediately the interviewer saw. And ultimately, the guy did get the job, but it was after my team talked to that group and basically was like, okay, hey, he's from a different environment. Maybe he didn't know. We can coach him on dress, the office dress, but he did look presentable. And, outside of his dress, would we hire him? Like, does he meet the skills? Is he a good fit for that team? And he was, but some teams are not like that. Some interviewers are definitely not, and would have just said, no, we're going to choose this other person that was more presentable, just depending on what type of job it is. Okay, this next one is like more for ladies, I think, but it's like a dress attire. So having just distracting stuff. And I remember this girl came in for an in-person interview, and she was dressed appropriately, looked really nice. But I remember her because she wore these bangles, like these loud, clunky pieces of jewelry. And so every time she would move her arms like this, and so when you're talking, you normally are moving your arms, right? It would just be like clunk, 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 clink, 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 clink. And it was just so distracting. So again, this is something that ladies may not think about. Also men, I don't know, maybe having multiple watches or something, I don't know. But having things like that, it can be very distracting for the interviewer. So I just say avoid that type of stuff. Like having really loud, like colors or wearing loud colors can be distracting, but then also just having things that are loud can be distracting. And I see Edward Smart says he's had people come in wearing slippers and shorts. I can honestly say I have not had that happen. Slippers and shorts. Interesting. So Edward Smart, I'm very curious. What type of job were these folks interviewing for? And is that the proper attire for just being in Hawaii? Like, is that normal? Because I think that's another conversation. Like in an environment where, it's just everyone dresses down, that could be okay. Like, for example, in the case of the guy that worked in a warehouse, well, if he were to interview at Amazon, they don't really look at dress. I don't believe. I've read somewhere where they say come as you are, and they don't take dress into account. But I would say 90% of other places do. So I'm really interested in that. So I'm going to leave that comment up because I think it's interesting. If it's just the fact that you're in Hawaii or, what type of job was that for? But I do not recommend it. Slippers and shorts. I don't know. That's not the weirdest I've seen, but I think it's close to the weirdest. All right, so the next one is another thing that I've seen ladies do. And this thing is actually wearing way too much makeup. Again, corporate job and being in a typical corporate workplace. So thinking about that, this girl came into the office and she just had a ton of makeup on her face. Like, I'm going to see if I can find a picture, but this girl had major, what girls will call contour. So just had a bunch of makeup on her cheeks. It looked almost clown-like, to be honest, but that is definitely a no-no. obviously you want to wear some makeup, or do what you need to do to look presentable. But there's definitely, okay, these are kind of extreme what I'm seeing online. But I think this might be close to it. I'll see if I can show it on the screen. But at the end of the day, just way too much makeup. So this is a photo of Lindsay Lohan. It wasn't quite like that, I guess, but just way too much. Just like, think dramatic, kind of like that. So anyway, just keep it pretty simple with the makeup. It should not look like you're going to the club. It should look like, pretty natural looking makeup is what we'd be going for. So Edward says, okay, you hire people for security positions. That's interesting. So in these security positions, they're just coming in slippers and shorts. Oh my gosh. Now that's a good one. I'm glad you shared that. So let's see. I guess my other question, Edward, then what is some other things that you've seen where people come into, their job interview and they either don't look appropriate or they say something inappropriate? I'm really interested. And Edward says it's not proper attire, and I take it into consideration when hiring. Thank you. That is a typical hiring manager. Yes, you definitely. Honestly, a lot of people know immediately. I remember my last manager, after our phone interview, she said she went through the face-to-face interview and we had like 3 people and I had to do a presentation, everything. She said from the beginning, just that phone conversation and seeing me face-to-face, within a few minutes, she had already decided she was going to hire me. Just like that. And I think that's a lot of mentality. We definitely can, make those decisions pretty quickly when we know, unless something goes wrong. But I think that's a good point. Thank you, Edward. Let's see. Okay, this is another one, and I guess I'm picking on the ladies right now, but I had another instance where a girl, we had an interview and, she's talking, and this is what she's doing the whole time of the interview. She's just doing all of this. And, going back to that point about the lady wearing all the bangles and clunky jewelry, you don't want to be a distraction. Like, that's super, distracting if you're just like, the whole time, it felt like she was more interested in her hair than the conversation. Now, I know that she was probably doing that as a way to cope with her nerves, because I know interviewing can be, nerve-wracking, but that is not the thing. And hello, Partly Cloudy 420. Welcome. We are talking about things that you see job interviewers do that are just not recommended. So not some of the worst things, but just some of the bad things. So don't play with your hair. The same as like I have on a bracelet. I wouldn't be doing this the full time of interview. I wouldn't be like playing with my hands the whole time of the interview or whatever else. I've definitely seen people just kind of fidget with things because of the interview. The tip that I always say to do if you're a fidgeter when it comes to interviewing is either you talk with your hands more or you put your hands under the table and you fidget. I actually told a guy this tip because he actually had some type of disability. I don't know if it was ADD or something, but he fidgeted a ton. And so I told him to, instead of fidgeting like with a pencil, like having a pencil and doing this the whole time, to fidget somewhere where the interviewer could not see. So tap his foot or move his leg under the table or something, instead of, that being a very visible thing. So that would be the deal there. Just don't do things that are super distracting. And let's see, Partly Cloudy says, never take your phone inside when on an interview. So I actually talked about that a little bit. I'm gonna I got your comment up there. But my point about the phone interviews is to make sure that you are in a quiet place, make sure that you are in a place with really good connectivity, and also you don't necessarily want to be in your workplace. So I had a couple of situations where that happened. Had a girl where she was clearly working in a call center. She took her call in our workplace and it was super noisy. And I mean, at the end of the day, she wasn't hired, of course, but it was just a bad interview. And I think a lot of it was due to the distractions because she was taking it from her desk in the call center. Had a guy where we kept losing service and he knew that he had bad signal where he was at. And then what was the other one? Oh, just, overall, just make sure you're in a place where you can have some quiet and actually have good connectivity. Let's see. Edward Smart says, one concern I have is lengthy time gaps in person's previous employment timeline. Oh, that's a good point. So for me, as a recruiter, I don't have too many challenges when it comes to talking about gaps in employment. When I'm actually coaching someone, I tell folks to just be ready to talk about their employment gaps, be able to talk about what you've been doing, what was the reason for the employment gap. So for example, if I actually have a friend and past coworker who, so she actually technically retired from work and went back into, or is looking to go back into the workplace now. So she left for family reasons and she's looking to come back now. And while she was away, she's been doing work with her church. So it's actually relevant to the work she would like to get back into, which is executive assistant or administrative work, because she's handling administration at her church. So technically she's been working. So, being able to talk about like, hey, here's why I left. Here's why I'm interested in getting back into the workplace. Here's what I've been doing in between time. Even if it's like taking classes and doing things like that, I think it's super helpful to just be prepared to talk about. So very good point, Edward. Bringing up some great points for this conversation. I love it. Okay, so going back to things that job interviewers have done. And I'm going back to my list because I'm like, I was thinking a little earlier. So this is like a big one that I actually talk about in a video. I think it's called 3 Things That Job Interviewers Do That Are Nonverbal, or something like that. But I remember this guy that would not look at me like in my eye. And it was a group of interviewers. We had 3 folks interviewing this guy. Not really the ideal. Ideally, we would be 1-to-1, but just for time's sake, we had to do it this way. And it was in person. And this guy would not look any of us really in the eye. So he would kind of look down at his resume, look over when he was talking, look down, look up, look around, look at the paper again. Like that sort of thing just makes a person, one, you immediately show that you're really nervous. And the other thing to counter into that is you're not really connecting to the person you're talking with, which makes it a little harder for the person to really show or see that they can trust you and engage with you in that way. And I think right now it's even more important to try to make eye contact with your job interviewers, even with it being virtual. So instead of you being able to look at the person in the eye, you're looking at the camera, which is awkward. But being able to look the person in the eye and have that engagement is important. And then also just nonverbal things like not smiling. So just like, you don't want to like mug the interviewer the entire time. That's definitely not cool. Okay, let's see. Rice and beans, hello, welcome. I have that problem. It's something I could never get over. So partly cloudy, I missed your comment. What's the problem that you have? Is it the gap in employment or something else? So talking about the gap in employment, I mean, it can be a challenge, but at the same time, you know, it is what it is. So the best you can do is make the best out of that and show, here's what I've been learning, here's what I've been doing, and here's why I would be a fit for the role, and really focus on the work that you were doing before, or, anything you've been doing more recently. So I think another way to get over that is to focus on getting referrals as well. Oh, okay, so partly cloudy says looking into the eyes. Okay, so do you feel like that's a problem you've had more recently, with the whole virtual interviewing, or something you've had a problem with in person? And tell me why. Is it like a nervous thing, or tell me why you think you've had that issue? Easy, welcome. Welcome. Everything is all good. We're having a chit chat. We're talking about just different things that job interviewers do, but they should not. So we've kind of talked about a couple of things. I think I've been hitting my ladies pretty hard. We talked about like wearing too much makeup. I had a case where a girl had just club makeup on for her interview. Also talked about wearing distracting items, and we talked about just things that you want to do to prepare for your interview. So make sure you're in a quiet place, you're not in your same workspace, and also you have good service and connectivity. So something else that I remember a lady brought up, it was an older lady, and I was actually working with the Urban League at the time. So it was this really nerve-wracking experience that the director decided she wanted her folks to do that were looking for a job. So we had folks from different employers volunteering their time to help with resume reviews and to help candidates with preparing for interviews. Well, she wanted them to stand up in front of us all and give her 30-second elevator speech. So super nerve-wracking. Felt really bad for the folks doing this, but one lady did a good job overall, but there were a few things that she didn't do so well. And she started off introducing herself by saying, I'm 40 something years old. And I was just like, no. On the inside, I was just like, no. And it's because I know age discrimination, and there's all kinds of discrimination, but age discrimination is very real, even when you're not directly saying like, hey, I'm over 40. I've seen it, and I don't even have, I've seen it different ways. I've seen it for myself being in a place where I don't have so many years of experience. I've also seen it for someone that has too much experience for what it seems like for the the hiring teams. So you definitely don't want to talk about demographics during a job interview. So you don't want to say like, hey, I'm just 45, I'm looking for a job. You don't want to say like, I have to feed my 5 kids or any of that. Like, these are all things that these folks do not need to know. You're having a business conversation. You're trying to determine if you're a good match for the job. For them, they're trying to figure out the same thing for you, like if you're a good match. So let's see. Partly Cloudy says, okay, I'm going to share this, I think. So you always have that issue of looking into the eyes, and you tend to stare once I make eye contact, and it's weird. So, partly cloudy, if you're still on here, I would say to that, you can definitely look away. Like, you shouldn't be just like wide-eyed staring at the person. I actually had someone do that to me. But I would definitely say, you can look away. Obviously, you'll have your resume, you'll have other things in front of you. If you need to look at your notes, you can look away. But my point about the guy that was just like doing all this, and yeah, I do that a lot, and I have this experience, like, complete the whole time, could not look me in the eye. It just makes you not trust the person. Like, it makes you feel like, okay, are you lying? Like, why can't you look at me at some point? You know, having a conversation, and kind of like how I'm doing, I'm looking, and then I'm also looking at my notes at the same time. You can look up sometimes when you're thinking. Those are some normal things. So think of it as, don't think of it so much as like, I have to look at this person in the eye, but we're having a normal conversation. So if I'm talking to my mom, for example, am I not going to look her in the eye? I am, because otherwise she thinks something's wrong with me, right? So if I'm talking to my mom about something, I'm going to look her in the eye. So in a day, you want to just make that normal eye contact that you would have if you're engaging with any other person. And I think, too, another tip with the eye contact, I think the more interviews you have, the easier it gets. So, just like anything else, practice makes perfect. The longer it's been since you've had an interview, the harder it will be. So something you could do as well would be to just do some mock interviews, practice with someone that you know, and that can really help. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks for the comment. I think that's super important. And I think hello, Conversations with Dee. Welcome to my chit chat. We are talking about job interviews, so welcome. And okay, I see partly cloudy and Edward Smart welcoming Conversations with Dee. Welcome. So the other thing I would say, I just had it and I lost it. So I had someone also do this. And I don't know if it was because they had too much coffee or they were just strictly super nervous. I had a girl, she was applying for an internship. So that was what she was interviewing for. She was interviewing for an internship in our HR department. And I think the girl just hadn't practiced very much. The entire interview, I kid you not, she was shaking. And I mean, like that, like shaking. And it literally was because of the interview. During the time where she was walking to the interview room and walking through the office for the tour and all of that, she was fine. Once she got in that seat and we started asking her questions, she was just super nervous to the point where she couldn't even function. And I remember it was a 2-person interview. I was interviewing with a guy on my team, and he even tried to joke around with her, and nothing. She could not be lightened up. So that would be, something else. Just make sure you're preparing for the interview. Now, I do have a thing from my own personal experience where, either things that I've said or what the interviewer said that was just wrong. So I'm going to actually start with the interviewer. Something that an interviewer said that was completely wrong. So I had an interview. It was for an HR consultant role, and I was going to be working at this really small firm. And this guy interviews me. He's my second round of interviews. And he at some point asked me about what my religion was. So he's basically gotten to the end of his questions or whatever, and he's just looking for something else to say. And he goes, "Well, what's your religion?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" And then he goes, "Oh, I wasn't supposed to ask you about that." I'm like, "No, you shouldn't." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm so sorry about that." And I think this goes back to, I don't think he was even used to interviewing. But as a job seeker, also know that there are certain things that the interviewer should not be asking you either. So that's another thing. So if someone is asking you something inappropriate or something that you know you don't have to answer, you can tell them that, that is an inappropriate question, or I don't feel comfortable answering that. And in that case, it could have been, a person asking about my age or asking about if I have kids or if I'm married. All of that kind of stuff is off topic. Even if someone's asking you, what's your ethnicity or any of that, like he immediately realized, like, oh, I shouldn't be asking this girl what her religion is. There's actually specific laws in the US for that reason. So again, job seekers, job interviewers, I mean, we know we can also say that we do not wish to answer a question if we know it's inappropriate. There's definitely a ton of different things that interviewers also do that do not make it any easier on the job candidates too. So I think that is like the end of my list. So overall, just like, don't take medicine. Oh my gosh, I just remember one more. So don't take medicine, but I also had an interview with someone that I'm pretty sure was high. So the reason I'm 95% they were high is because the tone of voice was super chill. It did not sound like they were ready for a professional interview. They were going back and forth. They were like not focusing on questions and the answers that they would respond with. They would just kind of trail off and be like, oh yeah, I know about that. And like, it was just very weird. So if they were not high, I don't know. I think they were on something, just in the way that they were speaking. So it did not seem focused at all, and were mumbling, trailing words, just seemed like, I don't know, just disconnected. So again, going back to, do not take any substances before your interview, even if it's over the phone and, I can't actually see you. A lot of things come through via voice, and even virtual, like nonverbals sometimes hit harder than the things that you're saying out of your mouth. And so, taking things, you may think that the person won't know, but I can assure you they will, because as recruiters, we're having plenty of phone conversations, so little things come across. I'm seeing Everett's comment. That can definitely be a problem. Exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, that would probably be the huge thing. It's like, just don't take medicine. Don't avoid it at all costs, and try to be your most alert self. I mean, obviously taking, coffee, whatever you need to actually be awake and alert is fine. But even sometimes with coffee, I have had different conversations with folks where some people just don't do well with coffee. Some people are like myself, I get really jittery. I cannot do coffee. I can't focus. It just throws me off. So as a job interviewer, I am not going to drink coffee right before my interview. And so the same case is with the girl that took the allergy medicine, and she's just going, oh, like, this is the boringest thing in the world. Like, I have so many other things to do than do this interview. Like, you have to know how these things affect you and think about the consequences of that for your interviews. Edward says, I just cut the interview short. Yes, and actually, so with that scenario, Edward, with the guy that I'm pretty sure was high, he actually hung up on me. So when I interview candidates, and hello, Paolindo, when I'm interviewing candidates, I ask candidates 2 behavior-based interview questions. So with that person, we got to one question, and it was really rough. He had a really, really hard time answering that question because he was most likely high, part of it. But people do have challenges with behavior-based questions. But when we got to that second question, he just hung up, and I know he just hung up. And the crazy thing is he called me later that day at like 6:30 at night. I'm just like, I've already submitted your phone screen. We're done. Like you are done. So it was just interesting. But yeah, I I would not have cut it short. I would have completed the full interview just because I'm like, okay, he has a 100% chance at the job or whatever. I'm gonna submit all the notes, but he just hung up, and that actually happens. There's been a few cases where other people on my team that's happened as well. So Paolindo said, hey, good to see you. It's nice to see you here, Paolindo. Welcome, welcome. I am doing well, and I like to hear that you love coffee. Coffee does not like me. I love the smell of coffee, but coffee definitely does not like me at all. It's really bad. Let me see. I'm going to go back up through the comments to make sure I didn't miss anything. But overall, these are the main things I thought of. Like, so these are the stuff that happened in the past few months that I just thought, like, man, I can't believe like people are doing this. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So Edward, I meant to mention this earlier, but I also recruit for security positions as well. So company I work for is pretty large, and we have a large campus, so we need on-site security folks. So I have a question for you. With your security positions, are you running any type of psychological assessments to make sure that folks are able to, be really great standout security professionals? And are any of your security positions armed? Really interested in that. So I've had multiple positions. Some more like dispatch or security operations center, and then others are on-site security patrol. Let's see. So I think I misread this earlier from Partly Cloudy. So never take your phone inside on an interview. I think you can take your phone inside during an interview. I just always say, make sure you turn your phone off, or at the bare minimum, make sure that you don't have like any alarms set and you have your phone on silent or do not disturb. That would be my tip for that. So definitely you can take your phone in with you. I've definitely done it. And I mean, if I would see a job interview with their phone, I don't think anything of it now. Everyone has their phone. We know emergency happens. And I mean, you may even want to look up something before the interviews. I do say, a lot of people come early to interviews, which I do recommend, at least 15 minutes early. I used to come a lot earlier than that, probably 40 minutes earlier, just to make sure traffic and I could find the place, didn't have any issues with parking, yada, yada, all the things that can go wrong. So I give myself enough time. I will say when you give yourself enough time, things tend to not happen, but when you don't have enough time, everything happens. So I definitely would say that. But you may want to have your phone with you, because if you have additional time, you may want to, do some prep. You may want to look on Glassdoor and look for some interview tips there, or you may want to, I don't know, look up some information on the company site. Now, here's something that I do see interviewers do. And I guess it's not really what they're doing, but what they're not doing. It's not asking any question, like not one question at the end of the interview. And I talk to a lot of recruiters and HR professionals and hiring managers as well. And a lot of them say that this is a deal breaker. Like they want you to ask a question, and not just like a question that's really generic or like, we already talked about it and I answered that question for you, But, have a thought out question and prepare to bring that with you. And then also, as you're having that job interview, when candidates are, really engaged and they're taking notes, you'll think of questions. So it's really hard to not have not one question after an interview, especially because a lot of interviews are like 30 minutes to an hour long. And then sometimes if we're having like a panel interview, they're no more than about 3 hours long. So throughout that time, you're going to have some questions. So let's see. Easy says, my doctor told me that coffee is unhealthy, especially because I have high blood pressure. So I drink warm and squeeze lemon in the morning or a warm cup of antioxidant tea. Oh, that sounds really healthy. Yeah, I mean, do whatever works for you. For me, I do like tea. I am a tea drinker, love it. I don't have high or low blood pressure. I'm pretty normal, but coffee just does not like me. It's not even a doctor has not told me like I should not drink coffee or anything like that. It just doesn't like me. Maybe because I'm very sensitive to coffee. I think that's what it is, because the jitters, some people like, having a little jitters because it gives them energy. It gives me too much energy. Usually I drink espresso. Oh, that sounds nice, actually. I think the last nice cup of coffee I had was either, like years ago, was either in Italy or Spain. So I feel you, Paolindo. Hello, Miss Yo-Yo Show. Welcome. We have been having a little chit chat. We've been talking about just different things that I've seen on job interviews, the good, the bad, and ugly, pretty much. Edward Smart. Okay, so Edward Smart is commenting back to me on my question about security jobs. So no psychological checks. Okay, only in-depth background checks. We hire for armed and unarmed positions. Well, thank you for that insight. I've been really trying to find some insight on that because a lot of places I've seen, they don't do the psychological assessments. They're just running the in-depth background checks for our security jobs. So thank you for the insight. So I think, let's see, I think I talked about mainly everything. At the end of the day, think about your dress for job interviewers. Don't come with club makeup, ladies. Don't come with just crazy jewelry. I made a video where I talked about even the colors that you wear, the things that you wear. Like it really should not be like some big fashion show. Yes, you want to look nice, but like it should not be over the top. Now, for my fellas, let me think of something that some guys have worn that are not good for interviews. So I feel like I've been picking on my girls. Okay, so one thing is like it's a good thing, but it can be a bad thing. So when you interview, guys typically will have a suit. And I think now a lot of places you can get away with not wearing a suit, traditional like suit, if you still look very professional. Obviously, I tell candidates to dress as professional as they can, but that jacket that you wear, sometimes you can take that off. Now, I had a case where this guy I think he naturally sweated more when he was nervous, but I think he was also very warm in his jacket. Well, this guy, although he was getting really warm and sweating all over the place, he decided to keep his jacket on until I think we had maybe 15 minutes left during this like 1 hour interview. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So he takes off the jacket and there's like the sweat, the wet marks, and you can see where he's, been sweating. So guys, if you're too hot, and we know, I mean, as ladies, like we even know it can be overwhelming to wear like a blazer. Just take it off, or you can even ask the interviewer like, oh, do you mind if I take my jacket off? at the beginning before you started sweating. So that's one thing. I think it does look very professional. Love men in suits. It looks top notch. But at the end of the day, you want to be your most comfortable. So, I mean, if you're sweating all over the place, that's not good. The other thing, let me see. Okay, so this goes back to the eye contact. Had someone in here that it was partly cloudy for 20. So talking about the eye contact and also just having space between people. A guy came into interview and it wasn't that he didn't give eye contact. It was that he was staring. He would like look you in the eye, get really close to you, and like talk to you. So if I asked, "Oh, how was your drive in today?" Step up to me, looking directly in my eye. I had a good, good commute. Yeah, I found the place fine. And it was just super awkward. And so as the recruiter, I was the one to greet this person. And, you greet them, you check in with them as a recruiter. And okay, I noticed it and I was just thinking and hoping like, okay, maybe this guy won't interact with the hiring team in the same way. Well, he did. And he got up close to them, shook their hands right in here. Now, obviously, we're not going to have this problem now because of, the apocalyptic thing that's going around. But that, just the awkward thing, he was great over the phone. And then in person, it was a totally different story. So that was probably the other thing that I would share that a guy has done during an interview that I would say not to do. Okay, I need to check my phone because I am waiting for an order to come. I think it's supposed to come here at 6 or 6:15 or something. So I need to check my phone. Let me see. Okay, yeah. Okay. So yeah, overall, just paying attention to what you're wearing, not having things that are super distracting, making the time to prepare for your interview, make sure you're in a place with good connection and all of that. And then, oh yeah, don't wear tennis shoes, don't wear jeans. Unless you have asked your recruiter or whoever your contact is if that's okay. In some places, it's actually better for you to come in dressed a little more casual, and that's okay. But you just want to make sure you ask. So I want to find this comment that Edward had provided earlier. Let me see if I can find it. So basically, if it's not the right attire, you take it into consideration when hiring. So I think that's a good point. Makeup, don't overdo it. Don't overdo it with makeup. Also, for men and women on a job interview, you definitely don't want to do it if it's in person with perfume or cologne. So this is something that I'm sure every person that's been in the workplace have come across this person that has had on way, 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 way too much perfume or cologne. And it can be super distracting. And it's really hard for the interviewer. So put yourself in the place of the interviewer and think about a person who walks into the room with overpowering cologne or perfume. You have this list of interview questions for them, and you have to sit in this enclosed space with this overpowering smell. And also, some people have allergies or just, they're not good with fragrances, and it can really hurt your chances of that job because the interviewer is not going to be thinking about anything you're going to be saying. If I'm interviewing someone like that, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to get out of here and get some fresh air. So that's another tip. I think I talk about that as well in the video. I'll probably end up linking that below, but just tips on little things that you can do and should avoid actually when interviewing, especially in person. Let's see. And then, of course, the nonverbal. So not looking in the other person's eyes, not smiling, doing things like that. So that was pretty much my list of things that at least I have recognized very recently when it comes to phone interviews and in-person job interviews. So that's all I got for this. I think I have answered all of the questions in the chat as well. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this live stream. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you are new to my channel, definitely subscribe. And if you like this type of content, leave me a note below in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.